In February 2026, a ranger trudged through the frozen Alaskan wilderness, and his body cam captured something monstrous stalking him. The footage shows Bigfoot doing something that investigators still can't explain to this day, and before he knew it, it was already too late to run. The file runs just over 2 hours, and the first hour or so is exactly the kind of footage you'd expect from a routine post-winter wildlife monitoring sweep in interior Alaska. Snowpack depth measurements, bark scoring from moose activity, checking trail cameras that had been running unattended since November. Then the footage changes. At 1:12:47, something steps into frame in the far background, between a cluster of black spruce trees, maybe 200 yards out. It's not sharp, it's not clean, but it's tall enough to interrupt the horizontal line of lower branches in a way that nothing in that forest should. A black spruce at that density doesn't produce shapes that tall, that upright, that proportioned. Whatever it is stands there for approximately 4 seconds, and then it's gone. Grady doesn't react because Grady doesn't see it. He's looking at scat on the ground 6 feet in front of him, crouching, marking a GPS point. He has no idea. And that, the gap between what he knows and what I can see on the footage, is what makes watching this feel like holding your breath for 2 straight hours. That is Bigfoot, standing in the trees, watching him work. If the goal of a monitoring sweep is awareness and control of the terrain, what happens when something else has already taken that control away from him? Bigfoot doesn't drift or blur the way a branch would in wind. It holds. It shifts its weight slightly, the way a standing animal does when it's been still for too long. Then it pulls back behind the trunk of the largest spruce in the cluster, and it's gone. But Bigfoot isn't gone for long. I have to slow the playback down to confirm it, because at normal speed it barely registers. But at half speed it's unambiguous. The shape doesn't drift or blur the way a branch would in wind. It holds. It shifts its weight slightly, the way a standing animal does when it's been still for too long. Then Bigfoot pulls back behind the trunk of the largest spruce in the cluster, and it's gone. 6 minutes later, Bigfoot's back, or something that looks exactly like it is back, and this time it's closer, maybe 120 yards now, partially obscured behind a different tree, but visible enough that you can make out the silhouette shifting its weight from one side to the other, still watching, still tracking him. And still, Grady is oblivious. He's moved on to checking a trail camera mounted chest high on a birch, pulling the memory card, writing down the serial number, just working. I genuinely don't know whether to feel worse for him because he doesn't know, or worse for myself because I do. And Bigfoot's haunting is barely the beginning. Then audio picks up the signals before the camera really commits to them visually. Low, rhythmic knocking sounds, not the rapid, erratic tap of a woodpecker, but spaced out, deliberate. 2 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. The interval is almost metronomic. Then something different, a hollow clicking, like 2 stones being brought together hard and slow, somewhere deep in the tree line. Not close, but not far either. The microphone catches it cleanly. No distortion, no ambiguity about what it is. If these sounds are deliberate communication, who are they meant for, and why isn't the intended target responding? What's ambiguous is that Grady doesn't respond. He doesn't pause. He doesn't glance up. He continues reading off coordinates mid-sentence without missing a syllable. I've watched that segment probably 30 times now. He's not suppressing a reaction. He genuinely does not register it. And that bothers me more than almost anything else in this footage because those sounds are loud, they're not subtle. Bigfoot is making them on purpose, and the man they're directed at cannot hear them. But what Bigfoot does next on camera, I still can't fully account for it. By 1:26:55, the pattern is established, and it's impossible to ignore once you've seen it once. Bigfoot crosses behind Grady in full frame, not partially obscured, not at the edge of the shot. Fully upright, full stride, covering maybe 30 feet in 2 steps. The movement is almost silent. No breaking branches, no crunching snow. Just mass moving through the forest faster than mass that size has any right to move. If something that large can move like that without a sound, what chance does he have of reacting in time when it decides to stop holding back? And then 5 minutes later, it's stationary again, roughly 30 yards out, in a gap between 2 spruce clusters, watching, The pattern is completely consistent across every appearance. Bigfoot shows up when Grady's back is turned or when his head is down. Every single time the camera swings in that direction, it's either gone or just barely out of frame. It knows exactly where the lens is pointing. That's not a coincidence. That is deliberate spatial awareness, and it means Bigfoot isn't just hiding. It's managing its exposure. It's hunting. And I mean that in the precise, calculated sense of that word, but that's not even close to the worst thing Bigfoot does. There are 4 more appearances in the next 10 minutes that I haven't mentioned yet, because individually they're easy to rationalize. A shadow at the wrong angle. A dark shape that could be a stump if you're being generous with your interpretation. But they're there, and when you map them out chronologically against Grady's movements, the spatial logic becomes unavoidable. Bigfoot is not following him at random. It's moving parallel to him, staying at consistent distances, adjusting when he adjusts. Then Bigfoot appears briefly on his left at about 50 yards. Moments later, the Sasquatch is now on the right side, closer, maybe 40 yards. How many angles is he exposed from at any given moment, and which one is it going to choose? And then Bigfoot became directly behind him, and this one is the clearest of the 4 because Grady's camera swings backward when he turns to mark a waypoint on his GPS, and for about 2 full seconds, Bigfoot is visible center frame before registering that the lens has rotated and stepping behind a spruce trunk. 2 seconds isn't long, but it's long enough to make out height, posture, and the fact that it was already in motion when Grady turned, which means it didn't freeze because it heard him move. It reacted to the camera rotation specifically. I've watched that clip so many times the file has started to feel worn out, and I still don't have a clean explanation for how that level of awareness works. But it does. If it's reacting to the camera itself, not the man, what does that say about what it thinks the real threat is? And when? Does it decide the threat is gone? And then Grady almost sees it. At 1:31:14, he pauses mid-step. His head comes up slightly. The camera holds on the tree line for almost 3 full seconds, and the shape is right there, partially behind a spruce, but the silhouette of one shoulder is fully visible in the gap between 2 trunks. Grady's gaze sweeps left, then right, then back down. He missed it by about 8 degrees of arc, 8 degrees. If he had turned his head that fraction further, he would have been looking directly at it. The shape doesn't move for those entire 3 seconds. It holds completely still while his eyes pass within inches of its position. He resumes walking. The shape shifts behind the trunk and disappears. I've watched that clip more times than I can count, and every time I watch it, I'm screaming at the screen. He almost had it. He almost knew. But something was not ready for him to know yet. Most predator encounters, the dangerous ones, involve a period where the animal decides whether the human is prey or threat. There's circling, there's noise, there's displacement behavior. What's happening in this footage is different. There's no testing. There's no ambiguity in the behavior. Bigfoot made a decision about Nico Grady before he ever walked into that section of forest. And it has been executing on that decision from the moment the footage begins. The knocking, the positioning, the disappearances timed to the camera angle. This isn't instinct. This is planning. At 1:44:10, the forest goes quiet, not gradually, not the way sound fades when you move away from a stream or when the wind shifts, all at once. Nothing. No background movement, no distant branch creak, no trace of wind. Even the sound of Grady's own footsteps seems to flatten, like the air itself has changed its acoustic properties. Grady notices it. You can see his pace slow slightly, his head coming up from the notebook he's been writing in. He looks around once, casually, then starts talking to the camera in a different register than before. He makes a joke about how the woods just decided to shut up. His tone is light, but it's the lightness of a man filling dead air, talking to cover silence he doesn't know what to do with. He keeps moving, but the commentary has changed. He's narrating now, keeping himself company. His GPS unit beeps 3 times in quick succession, and he glances at it, frowns briefly, and notes that he's apparently drifted off his planned route by about a 1/4 mile. He can't figure out exactly when it happened. He marks the position and adjusts his heading, not realizing that the detour has taken him deeper into a narrower section of the drainage valley, terrain that tightens on both sides with rising ground that funnels movement toward the center. If his goal is to stay en route and maintain control of his position, how did he end up exactly where something else would want him? He's being herded by Bigfoot. I don't say that lightly. I've looked at the topography of that area, and the quarter-mile drift puts him exactly where the terrain would be most advantageous for something large to close distance quickly without being seen from multiple directions. Whether Grady was walked into that position or drifted there on his own, it doesn't matter at this point. He's in it. Then Bigfoot's clicking comes back, sharper, closer, higher frequency. And Grady hears it now. He stops mid-step, one boot in the air, then down, hard, as he freezes completely. Half a second of silence. Then he says it, almost laughing, almost asking what that was. His voice is still trying to be casual, but the camera is already moving. His head is turning fast, scanning the tree line left to right. You can feel the shift in him, the way the footage changes energy. Whatever compartment he had that sound locked in for the past 40 minutes has just been forced open. When the mind finally catches up, what does the body still have time to do? And then Bigfoot almost touches him. But before we get into that, you need to see this, because I found something else while watching this footage. Evidence and more discoveries that I can't put on YouTube. Things that were taken down, ignored, or completely removed. I gathered everything into one file. If you want to see it, it's in the description. Now back to the footage. Grady is writing in his field notebook, his back to a cluster of spruce, and Bigfoot comes out of the trees on his left side and moves to within approximately 15 feet of him. 15 feet. You can see the mass of it, the dark bulk at the edge of the frame, and Grady is standing there with his head down, writing. His pen is moving. He is completely unaware. The shape holds there for 4 full seconds. I have counted, and then a branch somewhere behind Grady pops with the cold, and it withdraws back into the tree line before his head comes up. He had no idea. The clicking comes again, louder, and now it's layered with something heavier, a low, rhythmic sound that isn't clicking at all, more like something massive shifting its weight on compacted snow. Grady is standing completely still in the middle of that drainage, and he is being chased by Bigfoot, and I think somewhere in the back of his mind, he just understood that. Brush detonates moments later. That's the only word for it. A section of dense undergrowth, maybe 20 yards to his left, erupts with enough force to shake loose a small avalanche of snow from the branches above it. Nothing visible behind the disturbance. Grady pivots toward it, breathing already picking up on the mic. He calls out standard protocol, announcing himself as a ranger and asking if anyone is out there. No response. Just the settling of disturbed branches, and then nothing again. Then seconds later, it happens on the opposite side, heavier, closer, 15 yards maybe. A sound like something the size of a refrigerator moving at speed through brush. It doesn't bother parting. Grady pivots again, faster this time, and his breathing is not controlled anymore. If there's nowhere left to turn, how do you survive a force that's already surrounding you? The thump arrives at 1:48:12, and it is not a branch falling, not an animal stepping off a log. It's the sound of concentrated weight landing on compacted snow from height. Grady spins. The frame blurs completely for almost a full second as his whole body rotates, and then it resolves. And Bigfoot is there, not at 200 yards, not at 120 yards, not at 30 yards. Right there, within arm's reach of him, upright and enormous. How do you react when the threat is already closer than safety itself? And when the frame stabilizes for a fraction of a second, you start to pick up detail. Real, physical detail that's hard to dismiss as shadow or trick of light. The shoulders are too wide, sloping forward into arms that hang lower than any. Humans would, the proportions just slightly wrong in a way that feels instinctively threatening. The body isn't clean or uniform either. It's layered in thick, dark hair that looks matted in places, clumped like it's been moving through wet brush or snow melt. There's a heaviness to it, not just size, but density, like every movement carries weight behind it. Even standing still, it doesn't feel still. There's a subtle shifting, a tension in the posture, like it's coiled and deciding. And then there's the head. It's not exaggerated or monstrous in the way people expect. It's worse than that. It's restrained, almost human in structure, but pushed just far enough out of proportion to feel wrong. The brow sits low, casting the eyes into shadow, but you can still catch the direction they're facing. Locked forward, fixed, not scanning, not curious, focused. The face doesn't move much. No visible expression, no open mouth or display. It doesn't need to. Stillness reads as intent, and what stands out most watching it back is how comfortable it looks in that space, like it didn't stumble into the frame or react to the ranger's presence. It was already there, already positioned, already waiting. The scale of Bigfoot relative to the surrounding trees makes the brain work to catch up with what the eyes are processing. And the footage suggests the Sasquatch came down from above, either dropped or jumped from one of the larger spruce trunks flanking that part of the drainage. It didn't walk up, it arrived. If the predator chooses where and when to appear, can escape ever be planned? Grady's body reacts before his mind has a chance to consult. He goes straight back, not a step backward, a full body collapse backward, arms windmilling, legs kicking out, landing hard on the snow and ice. The scream that comes out of him is not something he controlled. It's the raw, involuntary kind that the body produces when it has been pushed so far past its thresholds that social conditioning doesn't have time to filter it. How do you fight when the only response left is instinct? He scrambles backward on his hands and feet for maybe 2 seconds, then gets his legs under him and bolts. The camera swings violently. Branches whip across the lens hard enough to leave streaks. His breathing spikes into the kind of short, ragged bursts that mean the body has handed the controls entirely to adrenaline. Whatever happens to his body for the next several minutes, he is not going to feel most of it. If awareness fades under panic, can he still outpace what's hunting him? The chase is immediate, and it does not build gradually. It is already at full intensity before Grady has taken 10 steps. Behind him, heavy impacts land in a pattern that is not random, crashing through underbrush. It's directional and adjusting. When Grady cuts left around a dead spruce cluster, the sounds behind him cut left too. When he angles slightly uphill to avoid a section of broken ice, the pursuit adjusts. Bigfoot is not chasing the noise, it's tracking his movement and anticipating his line of travel. Footage shows that Grady's right boot catches the edge of a partially buried fallen log, and he goes down hard. You hear the impact, hear the grunt punched out of him, hear the brief scrambling of someone whose legs are not cooperating, but he does not stop. He's back up in under 2 seconds, still running, still pushing. That fall should have ended his forward movement. It doesn't, because adrenaline has essentially converted his body into a machine that doesn't take damage assessments into account anymore. If pain is ignored, how long before the body finally betrays him? Branches are hitting him in the face and arms now, with enough frequency that the camera lens is starting to catch intermittent drops of blood. Not pooling, not smearing, just the quick spot of a cut that hasn't been noticed yet and won't be. At one point, he makes a sharp gasping sound that's distinct from his breathing pattern, likely a branch catching him across the face, hard enough to open something on his cheek or forehead. His footing is getting worse as the drainage terrain starts rolling unevenly beneath him, with patches of exposed root and ice-covered stone that he's crossing at a speed his body is not equipped to navigate safely. I want to say this for context. Most people in the physical state Grady is already in, winded, bleeding, one leg compromised from that fall, would have gone down and stayed down by now, but he hasn't. That's not heroism. That's what the body does when it genuinely believes it is going to die if it stops. At 1:50:22, you get the clearest view of Bigfoot in active pursuit that the footage provides, and it is the frame I keep coming back to. Grady has hit a slight downhill grade, and the camera angle, as his body pitches slightly forward with the slope, captures a fraction of a second over his right shoulder. Bigfoot is maybe 40 feet back, moving through the trees at a speed that reads as effortless, not sprinting, not crashing, but covering ground with a long, fluid stride that eats up the distance between them in a way that makes Grady's panicked sprint look like jogging by comparison. If the hunter moves effortlessly while you struggle, can you outthink what outpaces you? There's no wasted movement, no flailing. It is completely, terrifyingly controlled. Bigfoot's not running because it has to. It's running at whatever pace ensures it doesn't close the distance too fast. That deliberateness, the sense that it is managing the chase, not just reacting to it, is the thing that gets under my skin. It was pacing him. It wanted him running. The terrain drops sharply, and Grady goes with it, loses his footing completely on a slope of slick, exposed shale beneath a thin layer of snow, and tumbles sideways. The camera goes with him, catching. Rotating flashes of gray sky, dark tree trunks, white ground. He hits something hard mid-roll. You can hear it. and the grunt he makes is different from the previous ones. Lower, involuntary in a different way. When the ground itself becomes a threat, where is safety? He gets up, but his movement is not the same. There's a pronounced hitch in his stride now, a slight drag on the left side that wasn't there before. Something in his knee or ankle that the fall rearranged. He's running on a broken part. Adrenaline is covering it, and it will continue to cover it right up until the moment it can't. I'm watching the gap between those two things closing in real time, and it is genuinely one of the more difficult things I've sat with in a long time. How long can the body lie to the mind before truth catches up? He hears the water before he sees it, that distinctive rush of a fast-moving creek that hasn't frozen through. And the camera swings toward it just as the ground slopes, hard toward the edge of a ravine, maybe 12 feet down, maybe 15. Grady slows for half a step, one beat of hesitation, and then from behind him comes Bigfoot with the heaviest impact of the entire sequence, close enough that it reverberates on the audio as a physical pressure. The branches 40 feet behind him shake loose a cascade of snow that the camera briefly catches in the peripheral edge of the frame. That half step disappears. His body rotates toward the edge, his arms come up for balance, and he jumps. The camera captures the fall in a chaotic sweep of sky and rock, and then the water swallows the frame. The impact knocks the breath out of him so hard that the microphone catches it as a single compressed burst of sound. He surfaces, gasping, fighting for orientation in water that is moving faster than he's prepared for, pushing him sideways against the downstream current. His movements are already degrading, not because of injury alone, but because the water temperature is doing what water that cold does almost immediately. When the environment conspires with the predator, what remains to fight with? He makes the bank, dragging himself over the edge of the ice margin onto frozen ground with movements that are no longer running or scrambling. They're the slow, shaking crawl of a body that has spent everything it had. After everything is spent, is there enough left to survive? He collapses onto his side, shaking in long, uncontrolled waves that the camera records as a stuttering vibration across the entire frame. His breathing is ragged and wet-sounding. He manages to get one arm underneath himself and push up slightly, enough to turn his head, slowly, toward the ravine above, and the camera tilts upward. Bigfoot is standing at the edge, looking down, completely still. I don't like what that distinction implies about what happens next. The camera tilts back down as Grady's head drops. His body is shaking hard enough that the footage vibrates. He manages to turn slightly, scanning the tree line on the bank side, the side he landed on, and that's when the camera catches them. Multiple Bigfoot standing in the trees, spaced out along the bank at irregular intervals, partially obscured by spruce trunks and brush, but present in a way that is unmistakable once you've seen the first one. Not one, not two. Several Sasquatch arranged along the tree line like they were already there, waiting on this side of the ravine. The water wasn't an escape route, it was a funnel. If every path leads into the hunter's design, where can Grady run? Grady makes a sound. I'm not going to call it a scream because it isn't one. It's lower than that, quieter, broken in the way that sound is when the body doesn't have enough left in it to make it properly. He whimpers and cries. He collapses forward. The camera tilts down, pointing at the frozen ground inches from his face. His breathing slows. The adrenaline is just gone. What comes in after adrenaline drops is everything the body spent the last several minutes postponing. The pain from the knee, the cuts, the cold, the impact of the water, the roll on the shale. It all arrives at once, and the body cannot process it all at once, so it collapses. The last stable frames that give you a clear image show one of the Sasquatch moving out from the tree line. Grady's camera doesn't swing toward it. He can't make that movement anymore. The angle drops slightly as his body shifts on the frozen ground, involuntary, not intentional, and the frame catches only the lower ground in front of him, the snow, the base of the nearest trees. Ranger Nico Grady was reported missing on February 19, 2026. When he failed to log his return from the monitoring sweep. His truck was found at the trailhead with his personal gear in the cab, phone, wallet, a thermos of coffee that had gone cold overnight, his equipment, minus the body cam, which was recovered from east. The location where it detached was never found.